Imagine losing control of your left hand. It still works, you can still feel it, but it doesn't obey you. Even worse, your own hand might work against you, or even try to harm you. It's like it developed a will of its own. What sounds like fiction is a real medical phenomenon, a rare neurological disorder where one limb, usually the left hand, acts completely outside the person's conscious control, as if it was possessed. Welcome to Narrated Horrors. Today we look at 3 real medical syndromes that can make your life a living nightmare. Number 1, alien hand syndrome. This phenomenon can be caused by physical brain damage like a stroke, brain tumors, neurological diseases, or surgical procedures like a corpus callosotomy, a medical procedure for treating extreme cases of epilepsy, where the nerves connecting the left and right brain hemispheres are severed. The horror of alien hand syndrome stems from the loss of bodily autonomy. The alien hand actively counteracts the healthy hand. If the patient uses their right hand to put on a jacket, the left hand immediately unbuttons it or pulls it off. If they try to eat, the alien hand may push the fork away or grab food directly from another person's plate. In severe cases, the limb might even cause self-harm to the patient. Documented behaviors include slapping the patient's face, picking at open wounds, or attempting to choke the patient while they sleep. Because patients still have sensory feeling in the limb but have zero control over it, they often emotionally detach from the hand. Patients frequently give the alien hand a separate name or insist it is possessed by an outside force. Patients often have to physically hold their alien hand down with their good hand, tie it to a belt, or wear a thick glove to prevent it from grabbing objects or causing harm. Even though the syndrome is rare, there are multiple documented cases in medical literature. One disturbing case involved a 55-year-old woman named Karen who experienced severe AHS following a corpus callosotomy to treat her severe epilepsy. Following the surgery, her left hand started acting independently. While her right hand picked out clothes, her left hand grabbed completely different items. When she tried to smoke a cigarette with her right hand, her left hand pulled it out of her mouth and threw it away. On multiple occasions, her left hand even attempted to strangle her while she was asleep, forcing her to physically restrain the arm before going to bed. There is no cure to alien hand syndrome since the brain damage cannot be undone. The only way to treat the symptoms is by restraining the hand or occupying it with an item, like a stress ball, so it doesn't interfere with the dominant hand. Number 2, Capgras Delusion. The 1956 movie Invasion of the Body Snatchers takes place in a town in California, where the residents are starting to feel like their friends and family members have been replaced by imposters. They still look the same, but something is just off. In the movie, it turns out the paranoia is justified because the residents are getting replaced by an alien life form. The terrifying premise of the movie, the unshakable feeling that the people close to you have been replaced by imposters, is actually based on a real phenomenon known as Capgras Delusion. It occurs when the connection between the visual recognition center and the emotional processing center of the brain is severed. Visual recognition happens when the brain identifies a person's facial features. For example, that person looks like my wife. The emotional response happens in the amygdala, which generates a feeling of warmth or familiarity when seeing a loved one. But if the connection between these two regions is destroyed, the patient looks at their relatives and recognizes their face, but feels zero emotional attachment. Because the brain cannot make sense of this emotional numbness toward a familiar face, it invents a logical reason to explain the problem. This person looks exactly like my wife, but I feel nothing for them. Therefore, they must be an imposter who replaced her. This is why Capgras Delusion is classified as a delusional misidentification syndrome. Patients believe a stranger has taken the place of their loved one, so they often become defensive or hostile and view the imposter with deep suspicion. The delusion usually targets those with whom the patient has the strongest emotional bonds, like spouses, children, or parents. Strangers or colleagues are rarely misidentified because the brain doesn't expect an emotional response to them. What makes Capgras delusion even more tragic is that no amount of proof, shared memories, photo evidence, or logical argument will change the patient's mind. To them, the imposter is simply an expert actor or duplicate. Studies show that roughly 30% to 38% of cases involve threats or physical violence, and around 4% involve attempted or completed homicide against the perceived imposter. The first documented case of Capgras delusion occurred in 1923 in France. Psychiatrists Joseph Capgras and Jean-Raboul Lachaud encountered a 53-year-old woman known as Madame M, who suffered from a highly complex psychotic breakdown involving multiple delusions. She believed she was a direct descendant of King Louis XVIII and insisted that an international crime syndicate planned to rob her royal fortune. Her psychiatric history revealed deep personal trauma. She gave birth to 5 children, 4 of whom died in early infancy. Driven by grief and psychosis, her mind rejected the reality of their deaths. She claimed her deceased infants had not actually died, but had been stolen and replaced with dead babies by the crime syndicate. She was also convinced that her husband, her daughter, and her neighbors had been replaced with imposters, but it didn't stop there. Madame M's delusion expanded on a massive scale until she eventually claimed there were over 80,000 imposters operating in Paris alone. One day she walked into a Paris police station and asserted that thousands of abducted children were being held prisoner in underground vaults beneath her house and across the city. Sadly, her belief about the imposters was unshakable. She filed for divorce from her husband on the grounds that he was an imposter and spent days trying to find the real versions of her family, who she thought were being held captive underground. Number 3. Alice in Wonderland Syndrome. Alice in Wonderland is the story of a young girl who falls down a rabbit hole into the nonsensical world of Wonderland. To return back home, she must find her way through a series of bizarre logic-bending encounters and strange size transformations. People suffering from Alice in Wonderland syndrome undergo a similar but more terrifying experience. Patients experience episodes where objects or their own body parts appear to swell to massive proportions or shrink down to tiny sizes. Time may feel like it is slowed down or sped up unnaturally, and flat surfaces can appear warped or wavy. That's because the brain region which processes spatial awareness and visual depth temporarily misinterprets signals sent from the eyes. The syndrome is usually accompanied by severe migraines, epilepsy, or the Epstein-Barr virus. A well-documented case involved a healthy 17-year-old boy who was admitted to a clinic after experiencing sudden, terrifying shifts in his perception. While looking in the mirror, he observed his head shrinking and his hands swelling to the size of garbage cans. When walking down a hallway, the floor appeared to drop down, and doors looked like they moved far away. Brain scans and blood work revealed he had no structural brain damage or psychiatric illness. His brain was misfiring due to acute swelling caused by an Epstein-Barr virus infection. Epstein-Barr virus is more commonly known under the name human herpes virus 4, and it's quite likely that you have it yourself. That's because HHV4 affects about 90 to 95% of adults worldwide. Almost everyone contracts it at some point in their life, but many just never show any symptoms. The Alice in Wonderland syndrome that the boy experienced was caused by the virus. Once the infection cleared, his symptoms completely disappeared. The name of the syndrome was coined by British psychiatrist Dr. John Todd in a 1955 medical paper. He specifically chose it because his patients' descriptions of their own body parts shrinking, swelling, or warping matched what happens to Alice after she drinks potions and eats cakes in Lewis Carroll's story. And it's not a coincidence that the story of Alice created by Carroll describes the symptoms so closely. It's highly likely that Carroll himself suffered from the phenomenon now known as AIWS, even though medical science at the time was not advanced enough to detect it. His personal logs show that he clearly suffered from severe migraines accompanied by visual distortions, leading medical historians to believe that the story of Alice in Wonderland is likely a reflection of his own experience with the syndrome. Just like with the other phenomena on this list, there is no direct cure for the syndrome itself. The good news is that it is often reversible. AIWS is almost always triggered by an underlying medical event. Therefore, treatment of the root cause can reduce the symptoms. If you enjoy this content, subscribe to the channel and let me know in the comments what topic you would like to see covered next.